Was a ball dropped today? Sal Capaccio with us now on the West Her hotline. Bulldog put it one way a few minutes ago, Sal, that the Bills didn't help themselves this morning. Would you think to say the same?
Sure. I think nationally, like looking at the response afterwards, reading people, listening to people, I think from the outside looking in, that is certainly the case. I think when you're a little closer to the situation, I've spoken with some of my media colleagues and friends in the media room who aren't quite as much there, where like, oh, they did this disservice, that disservice to themselves, they didn't help themselves. I think that's a good way to put it, though, not helping themselves. I don't think it was quite from that perspective from people who were there, like some sort of disaster like that. There were definitely times they stepped in it, or Terry Pegula could have phrased something or did something differently. I think the national perspective of what happened today in Buffalo is a lot harsher and more critical than what it is locally from the people who were there.
Interesting. Well, the, if you will, signature moment might have been Beane stepping in, or rather, Pegula stepping in to a question put to Beane about Keon Coleman. Sal, I mean, this to me was unbelievable. And when we talk about the press conference in terms of whether the Bills helped themselves at all, how did this particular move by Pegula help anyone? Start with whether it's Beane or Coleman or whoever else.
It's one of the storylines of the press conference, no doubt about it. Like if you had to rank, there's a lot of things you could put. Like what is the number one thing, that was said or the takeaway? And I think the Keon Coleman stuff is right up there, and that's unfortunate because who knew we were going to a press conference and coming out with a Keon Coleman storyline, right? I mean, like that's not what this was supposed to be about. This was supposed to be about what happened with the head coach, why he was fired, and what you're doing moving forward, a new structure in the organization, who you're going to be hiring, all of that kind of stuff. And then as the kids like to say, Keon Coleman caught some strays, right? I mean, like that's what happened here, but it wasn't just a stray. It was like said out loud poignantly, right? Bam, Keon Coleman. And Terry Pegula said that Brandon Beane, what he said was the coaching staff pushed for Keon. That's what he said.
He wasn't Brandon Beane's next choice, right?
Correct. And later in a follow-up, by the way, I believe John Morrow had it from the AP, where Terry had said to them that, and either him or the AP in general, whatever, had said to him that it wasn't necessarily Sean McDermott either. It wasn't specifically meaning Sean McDermott, just the coaching staff. So my big takeaway, and this is all part of it, right? What do you take away? Each person has something they bring away from the press conference that says this is what was important to them. I came away today thinking it was very, very important to the Bills to make sure we all knew as media and fans that Brandon Beane didn't just hand Sean McDermott a roster and say, go coach them, and he picks all the players and makes all the decisions and says, go coach. It was, I think, made clearly obvious intentionally that the Bills wanted everybody to know that Sean McDermott and his coaching staff had and have always had influence over the roster. It doesn't mean they're making the decision or Brandon Beane's making the decision, that it's a collective effort. Like there was a lot of talk about that today that I felt was intentional talk.
I agree. And my thought is, well, we knew that. I mean,
right.
They've advertised that for years. It's been part of the success story of the Bills. They literally share videos from the draft room where they're talking to each other. Like it's just not news at all. It's just an example of how I think very often Pegula misses the mark. Like that's not something that really needed to be stressed. In fact, if I may, Mike,
go ahead. I would say this though. I think there's been a lot of question about that over the last, especially week, but really going back maybe the last several months, the trade deadline, right? I think there is a perception out there, and if the Bills feel there's a perception, I don't think they're wrong about this, that there's a perception of Brandon Beane has this roster and Sean McDermott coaches it, and there's this friction because McDermott doesn't think that he gave him a good enough roster. Mm-hmm. So today was a day to say, wait a minute, we all kind of share in the building of the roster here, right? So you're right. Like they could put out all the videos they want, and that's happened over the years. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's this clear perception amongst the fan base that is not necessarily how it works.
Very well. My big takeaway, and today is a part of it, it's not all of it. Sal, I can't believe how clean this break is. And I don't mean clean in like a friendly way, but it's almost like they continue to allude to McDermott as somebody that could have just been anybody here for any period of time and won any number of games or lost any number of games. Like there's really no particular acknowledgement of how well this went for the better part of the last 9 years. I can't believe it. Like there was such almost maybe, you say intentional, I agree, almost maybe a strained effort to leave coaching out of any explanation for their success. There's one clip from Pegula where he does that about the players, and he's talking about the practice squad and different things. And there's literally no mention of any role that coaching would have played in that process. To me, this is not just a guy who was here for 2 years and went 10-20 or something. And to me, that's how it sounds like they're talking about it.
Right. I mean, when Terry opens up the press conference, he rattles off the numbers, right? And we all know what I'm talking about. And he says, what are these numbers? And the numbers are representative of the seeding. The first thing he gets to is you don't have a good enough roster. You have to have a really good roster to do that. He doesn't say you have to have a really good roster and really good coaching, right? Nothing like that. It's you have to have a good roster. Later on, he had a direct quote of, he said, great roster, good coaching. Like those words were said, those 4 words in order like that about something else. So it does feel like here that he's going by, hey, I walked in the locker room, which by the way, obviously is a really big story today, right? Like, why did this happen? How did this happen?
Yeah.
And the story is, and he kept telling everybody, and he said it like 3 times. He's like, look, I'm telling you, I went in the locker room and the emotion that was pouring out, and I went up to Josh Allen and I said it was a catch, and he didn't even acknowledge me because he was sobbing so much. And I looked around and I felt I need a change. They hit the proverbial playoff wall. And I do also appreciate, and let's understand, he said, he was asked again, so did you basically make just a decision based on losing this game? You say it was a bad call. Like you say it's a bad call, and then you're going to fire the coach because you lost a game on a bad call? He said no. It was they hit the proverbial playoff wall is the way he called it. He said 13 seconds, missed kick, the catch. So
what's the catch?
As much as
Cooks.
The Cooks catch. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Duh. I kept thinking, like, did I forget a play? Yeah, it was the one from Saturday.
The one that wasn't called for the catch. So he, so from that regard, I at least I want to take away and appreciate the fact that he's saying, look, I know I'm saying I did it that day. Like I didn't. He said he didn't have any thoughts of firing Sean McDermott. That's what he said up until then. He did it that day, but he also wants to let you know it wasn't a snap judgment. He looked and said, okay, we've done this every year. Right. We can't keep doing this. We need to make a change.
Yeah. There's so much to unpack. Like to Mike's point about how it just seems like there was no nod to McDermott. Like, I didn't need there to be a wake. I mean, they didn't win. They won 5 division titles in a row, which deserves more than what we've heard and seen, for sure. I think they vastly underestimated all week from the drop of this announcement, Sal, from the first, for the thing they sent out, the press release they sent out, just how emotional the attachment much of the fan base would have to McDermott, and I think they're still trying to sort of find their footing here. So they just haven't been able to find, to me, the right amount of, sorrow is a little too strong, but we all did the best thing. We did the best we could. We didn't want it to come to this, but it came to this. I think that describing the emotional wreckage in that locker room is, and reacting to it is a fine explanation. But you should have started there instead of this stuff that got leaked out on Monday night about McDermott pushing back about the roster and all this other stuff that just muddied the water. And I feel like they tried to spin one narrative, and when it didn't work, came back to, I did it because of this. And I don't know. It just makes me worry about decision-making and optics and their ability to navigate things cleanly, without McDermott sort of in the front of it all.
He did say he didn't know where that report came from or why it was out there.
Yep.
He said they meet all the time, right? So we don't know the exact details of if they're going to meet all the time. Maybe there was something that went on in that meeting or in those meetings or whatever that got you there. He did kind of refute and push back against that specific report that, there was a meeting 5 weeks ago and McDermott, said he wasn't pleased with the roster. So anyway, that being said, one of the reasons, obviously we go into this press conference and people want to know, okay, well, you fired the coach, but you also gave the GM a promotion, right? How did that happen? And why did that happen? And Terry Pegula, made it clear that he believed that Brandon Beane has brought a lot of talent into this organization. And I think one thing I came away with was he wants to make sure, like, he has the person here who continues to bring in the front office talent. And he mentioned Brian Gain, and he mentioned Dan Morgan, and he mentioned Joe Shane. And he even mentioned Josh Allen. He actually said he had to do a Houdini act to get Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Brandon Beane. That's what Terry Pegula said. But I think it was clear today that Terry Pegula has a lot of affinity for Brandon Beane's ability to bring people into the organization that he feels helps his organization be successful.
You think Coleman is on the team after today?
I don't.
I don't either. Like,
I just don't know how you can.
I know.
Like, what are you going to get for him if you're going to trade him? There's only 2 points I think you can move him. Number 1 is near the draft, and number 2 is probably after camp once he's on the team and shows up to training camp. I guess you could try before that, but it feels like those are the only 2 kind of spots along the way that fit. You know what I mean? And what are you going to get? Today, they were trying to really keep his value up as high as possible while also kind of telling the world, well, the GM who's sitting here kind of didn't really necessarily want him.
Right. That's what Beane was doing when he circled back. Like, that was my pick.
Right.
We're young guy, immature, whatever. Help him out. We're going to, okay. That's the, the unforced error point. That's why I said earlier, and Mike alluded to it, like, I don't know how much they hurt themselves, but you have an opportunity, 45 minutes uninterrupted on the local airwaves. You should be able to help yourself. And I definitely don't feel like they did that.
They also went into it with, I think, a lot of people already. I mean, you guys see it. Like, it was already a really, I don't know, what do you want to call it, tense, like the angle of which people were coming into this press conference from fans' standpoint was, I don't know if you had a lot of wiggle room for that anyway. It would have been really tough to kind of get people to, oh, okay, yeah, now I totally see. Like, I didn't think that would happen anyway, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Pegula, by his performance, I think, has taken a lot of the spotlight off of Beane. We're not really scrutinizing his words so much. But, to the never-ending, or at least the continuing discussion about whether they have enough talent at wide receiver, that, of course, our radio station has been in the middle of the whole time.
Which, by the way, he spoke at length of when he was asked a question about that particular interview,
yes,
which I thought was interesting.
That's what I'm getting to. Like, well, that's part of what I'm getting to, is how, like, he regretted, if that's not the word, the pressure he put on his receivers. And I just refuse to believe that for 5 seconds. Like, the Bills couldn't get open because of the pressure that they felt from Brandon Beane talking about how good they were. Come on.
I'm not gonna. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna link they couldn't get open because of the pressure. I think those are 2 separate things. You guys remember when that all happened, and I think you brought me on that day, and my response to you was, well, look, if he agrees with Jeremy and Joe, he's basically sending a message to the room that they suck. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't think that he would do that. He's going to protect his guys in some way. To me, that's kind of the way that he was talking today. Well, I put a lot of pressure on them, but at the end of the day, he did say that, he said he spoke out of passion, basically. He spoke out of passion, and guys, we know that, right? He's a loyal guy. Brandon Beane's a loyal guy. He's spoken out of passion for Buffalo in the past and things like that. And, I think today, even though he said it wasn't personal with Jeremy and Joe, he's gone on the radio with them ever since. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, Mike. You're right. I mean, like, the pressure he put on them, that's an interesting word. I don't know if they're related, though, the pressure he put on them versus them, not performing and getting open as the season went on.
No, the point is, like, the whole point was lack of talent. And, he thought maybe by saying what he said that he put the spotlight on those guys more.
Yeah.
And I
got what you're saying. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
come on. I wish I could get away with anytime I lose my temper, that's just because I care. Like when Dorsey slammed that iPad or whatever it is.
In Miami, yeah.
And, fans are sometimes like, oh, he just cares. It must be nice to be able to get away with anything just because, you're passionate. Good for you. Good for you not being able to control yourself. The numbers thing, Sal, you reminded me of that. 5-3-2-2-3-6. Like what is happening?
I thought that was going to lead to a point of we should have achieved a 1 seed somewhere in there.
But instead it was how good we were.
Right.
Yeah, and like whoever has put the Bills last years in that kind of framework, just the numbers of the seeding. Like if I had been in the room, I'd be like, I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what's happened for 6 years,
right,
but I didn't know that was going to be, Powerball or something, whatever. Just kind of weird, but all right. Well, now it's on to candidates, Sal.
Yeah.
We've got names. We talked about Anthony Lynn here at the top, just how he was here before. Brady, Daboll, Anthony Weaver, Lou Anarumo, Grant Udinski. Any thoughts on this list?
Well, it's a preliminary list. I'm sure there's going to be more, and the Bills are challenged here because they're late to the party, so to speak. If they had fired Sean McDermott 2 weeks ago, which obviously wasn't going to happen, there'd be a more lengthy list. And what's happening is the people who would be on that list are already getting jobs elsewhere, and they're hiring coordinators elsewhere. So this is going to be challenging. So as much as I'm sure they would like to be patient, I don't know how patient they can be in this situation, because even if they want somebody who's currently coaching, if that person wins, they can't interview him until after the Super Bowl. And then on top of that, that person's going to be very limited in the people who are available to bring with them. As far as the list itself, 4 of the 6 candidates that we know of that they've requested interviews with have ties to the Bills organization, but not all of them to Brandon Beane. Obviously, Brian Daboll has been here. I think it's very notable that Terry Pegula would not say whether or not Josh Allen, endorsed or did not endorse the firing of Sean McDermott. It sounds like he found out afterwards, by the way, that he wasn't consulted on it, but that he also said, and I think it's notable, Josh Allen will be a part of the team that's going to be, a part of finding the next head coach, meaning he's going to be in on the conversation, consulted, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
And to me, that leads me right to a guy like Brian Daboll immediately. Doesn't have to be him, but obviously they have a relationship. They know each other very well. Josh was excellent in the 2 years that Brian was, offensive coordinator here in Buffalo. That said, I find it interesting. There's a couple of names from the defensive side as well. I don't think the Bills should limit themselves to just trying to find an offensive guy, but I think at the end of the day, they probably will find an offensive guy.
Yeah. The clock is going to be ticking on Daboll. Here's where the timing of not being able to talk to the Denver or Seattle guys or the Rams guys or Patriots guys, if there's any there, that they're interested in until those teams lose here starting Sunday. Because some of those people, I think Kubiak interviewed already with Baltimore or somewhere during the bye week. So there was, not that the Bills were prepared to do anything then, of course they weren't. But the reason I make the point about if you got to wait for that guy, there's the timing, of course, Sal, like you're saying, of what kind of assistant pool will there be by then, and that can get tough. Diana Rossini reports that Daboll is, going to interview here, but Philadelphia is waiting on him. And so Daboll might be like, if you want me, you better move because, I got to get settled. And Philadelphia, the clock is ticking on them. They want me as their OC, and that's a great opportunity with a team that's a, perennial playoff Super Bowl contender every year. I can't wait that I'm going to lose out to Clint Kubiak in 2 weeks. That makes the machinations of this challenging.
Yeah, and listen, the Eagles or any team, the Eagles, the Eagles, right? Offensive coordinator, Eagles. The Eagles or any team do not have to wait on the Bills, and I don't think they would care what the Bills think. You know what I mean? So they, from their perspective too, those teams have to get a move on and what they want to do.
Right.
So as much as you're right, Brian Daboll, for example, would have to go and want to go to Philly and go, look, I really want the Bills job. Let's see how that plays out. The teams that are hiring these guys, all they have to do is go, no, you need to give us the decision by Friday morning because we need to make a decision and put our staff together, and we're not waiting on the Buffalo Bills. We have no responsibility for that.
Right, that's the point. Interesting. Okay, thank you, Sal. Feel better.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, a little Yeah, a little under the weather here, but that's okay. We will, and then I'll be in tomorrow and back on the Extra Point show for people who want to obviously react. And if anything happens between now and then, we'll be talking about it.
Okay.
Sounds good, Sal. Thank you again. Sal Capaccio on the West Her Hotline. His appearances are brought to you by New York's only outlet, Liquor. When you need to stock up, it's the place to buy a case. What's your outlet?
You seem to keep forgetting that Doug Marrone is on the New England staff.
Yeah, I do.
By the way,
I do.
Offensive line coach.
Selectively, I'm forgetting.
If there's anybody from New England, he's a guy made the AFC Championship. McDermott didn't do better than that. 15 years in a row, either the Patriots or the Chiefs are in the AFC Championship.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
How did we not just get one exception to that?
In a year where
years?
It was so wide open,
I know.
right? But it's the
New England, Denver?
New England being back is what the problem is. Yeah.
Ugh, just not interested really at all. Maybe by Sunday. 803-0550 for your calls. We'll get back to that after the update. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.